Dear friends, welcome to my video. In this video, we'll see how to integrate Google's generative AI PaLM API with using like curl command using the JSON in your Android app. So let's begin. Let's create a new project. Next, you can name it as Google's PaLM API, and then click on finish. Wait for the environment to load. It may take a while. In the meantime, I'll just quickly show that for that you will have to register on the MakerSuite using your Google ID, and then once you register and go to the home page, and sometimes it's on a waiting list, just FYI, so it may take a few days for you to get approval. I was lucky to get it approved, and then you can come to the home page and click on this create an API key, and then you can create the API key to be used. So I created several of them. I'll use probably the first one. Don't use my API key. I'll definitely delete it. But yeah, I have copied it in my clipboard. I'll just paste it over here just for backup. I'll use this API key in my Android app. Also, I'll show you the documentation. The documentation link is somewhere below itself. So they have given the curl command here, but for the response and all, you may have to refer the documentation. Go to the documentation page by clicking on this quick start guide, and over here use PaLM API with curl. And if you scroll down, so they have given you the curl command once again over here, which is like a method post, and the respective response will be something like this. So it will have candidates, which will be an array, and the output will be the text will be in the output. Okay, so this is what we'll be using over here in our uh, code. So I'm back to my Android studio, and it seems the environment has loaded now. Before I begin or before I proceed, I have also started my emulator in PaLM on the right hand side. So let the emulator come up. But before I proceed, one thing I'll need is internet access, because the API is run over internet. Also, I'll be using something called Volley library to access the curl command using the JSON. So I'll go here and do an implementation of the respective Volley command. So the Volley command which we have to implement over here is com.android.volley, and I think the version is 1.2.1 is the latest one right now. I think it should be in double quotes rather than single quotes. That was a mistake which I think I did. Yeah, perfect. And then you may have to click sync now over here to sync and get the library. It may take a while. Now I'll move quickly back to my, okay, before I go to the Java code, I'll first complete my layout here. So in terms of layout, it's really simple. I think I can minimize this emulator on the right hand side. I don't need it. For now, I just need a button, probably to trigger or generate the, what should I say, generate the PaLM, or I'll just put PaLM API. PaLM API, yeah. I think it's a small capital I. I'll give the required constraints. Perfect. And I can make it a little bigger also, not a problem. I'll give a text, plain text on top to get the input from the end user. Okay, and this, I'll just zoom it a little bit, and I can give this against any text. So here, oh, probably I'll do one thing. I'll not give a text. I'll give it just a hint, and hint could be, so if I scroll down, input text here. Okay, and that's it. I think I'll use this for my output or text view. I can use this for my output, and if I scroll to the topmost text view, I think I can make it a very big copy. Yeah. Okay, so that's all from the layout perspective. I'll quickly go back to my Java code, and I'll define few class variable. One will be, of course, the text view, and the other one will be the edit text, and in the onCreate method I'll associate this to edit text, find view by id r.id.edit text. I don't know why there are two times, but it's fine. And text view also, find view by id r.id.TextView. Perfect. I'll now create a public void button palm API and view. Yeah, I'll go back to my layout XML file and quickly associate that method what we have just now created to the on-click attribute of this particular button. Perfect. So I think now from layout perspective we are done. We can continue over here. And the first thing over here I'll do is to get an input string, right? So string input text, and this I will probably do one thing. I'll first hard code something, and again I'll go to probably my tutorial and or the documents of the Google, and this is the default text prompt they are using, so I'll be using this one. Okay, yes, and I'll do one thing. I'll update this if edit text dot get text to string is not is empty, but is not empty. If it's not empty, then I'll update this with the above one, which is basically edit text dot get text dot to string. Yeah, otherwise if it's empty, then I'll better go ahead with the default string whatever we are trying to do. Now that's all with respect to the input. Now I'll quickly jump to the creating my JSON objects over here to call the particular curl command. Okay, so new JSON object, and then I'll create the message for this. So if I go back to my this one here, it expects me to create a message in terms of a prompt over here. Okay, and prompt will be a message of text. So if I go back to my code, so here I'll have to create something called JSON object message object. So it will of course a type of JSON object, but it's a kind of JSON object one or message, or you can also use text. Okay, and this will again new JSON object, and in this JSON object text we can put first the string will be nothing but this text. So see, control we make sure there is no typo. It's a case sensitive is what I understand, so make sure everything is accordingly, and then you can put the string input text as the input to this, and then we can use this JSON object to update the initial JSON object. So we can put JSON object dot put, and again here I'll quickly go back here, and this is a prompt is what we have to update with nothing but JSON object text. Perfect. So I think here it will ask me to surround it with try catch. Please do it, and also I'll do one thing. I'll just put everything inside control X, control V. Yeah, I think both the things I'll update inside the try catch of this particular subroutine. Now what I'll do is I'll create something called JSON object request, and here new JSON object request int method. I'll use this first one, the method string this one, and the first input is I think the method, so that's of type request dot method dot post is what we need. Perfect. And then the second argument is a URL which we have not defined, so for the time I'll just keep URL. I'll come to this later. Then the third argument is JSON request, so this is the JSON object. Then fourth argument is listener, so I can define a new response listener. Perfect. And one more argument was required as was I no, which is basically error. Yeah, new, and it should prompt me, otherwise it's difficult for me to, yes, error list. So that's all is what I understand. Now let me first complete this URL part, which is basically the end URL. I can define it in the as a class variable itself, because that will be easy. But before that, I'll need something called string API key, and this is what we have copied initially in our text file, which is basically this. So this is one we need, and apart from that, now we can create our string URL endpoint. Okay, you can name this variable anything, and this will again, if I go to the documentation now, over here they have given this is the HTTPS what we have to use. So you can either use it from here, or even I think over here they have given us the HTTPS. If you notice, the last part is your API key, which we will have to replace from our API key. So first let me copy this. I think this part is, I'll just delete this, and here I'll use something called string API key, which is basically my particular API key over here. Perfect. Now I'll be using this URL endpoint over here to form my JSON object request. One more thing which we will need is probably over here is the header, to update the header of this. So because this is the part of the body which we are creating for this JSON object, and header we can update here. So that's we can do using something called get header. Yeah, this one. And over here we may create a variable, local variable of called map string type, control C, control V, map header, and this could be new hash map over here, and then we can update this map header dot put, and this again the string type and the value. So for that we'll have to again go to our documentation, and here the string type of the header is content type. Please note, you don't have to copy the colon here, colon, it will automatically yeah, take care. And then the value will be nothing but application. Just you can type also, but I prefer always copy paste to avoid any kind of spelling mistake. Yeah, and then I think this is the only header which we require over here. So this is something which we can return over here, which is basically map header. Perfect. So more or less I think our structure is ready. Now we have to update the on response and on error part. So quickly let me update the first on error part. This could be easy, and this I can just update error. Okay, so that we know that it has come to the error part. Now in the on response part, that's where we have to refer the documentation again. And if I go back here, so it will return something called as a array of candidates, and the first output will be the what we have to fetch over here. Okay, so if I go back to my code, you can get the output in a string format. So string output, and this could be from the response dot get JSON array, because the first one is of array of with the value called candidates. Okay, so we have to fetch the array with candidates, and then inside this we have to fetch the objects of the index, first index, and then we can fetch the something called string of with the value or key called output. Okay, and I think that's all if I'm not wrong. So I think here is some try catch error again, so yeah, just do it. It will take care of encapsulating it within a try catch, and then we can print this in our text view as our output. So I think more or less that's all. Now we can just call this JSON object request using the volley command. So what I'll do, first I'll create something called timeout policy. So because by default I think the timeout could be this, so I'll just give some kind of default timeout. So it could be, say for example 60,000 millisecond will be around what, 60 seconds, because it's a milliseconds. So yeah, and then I'll use this, I'm not sure why this being a spelling mistake, whatever, and then I can use retry policy, and this view type policy could be new default retype policy, and here I can update my timeout period over here. Default retry maximum retries, default back off multiple times, and I think that's all. So I can use this to update my retry policy for the request, set retry policy and retry policy. Perfect. So once I have it, then what I can do is I can just use the volley command to new request queue, and the context could be get application context, which is the current context, and then we can add in the queue the JSON object request. Perfect. So I think that's all. We can rerun and see whether we get the our required results or not. So I've rerun it. Let's see. Yeah, it has come up. So let me type some text. So I'll say write a poem about cloud. Let's see whether it works or not. I just given a random prompt, right? Okay, perfect. So there is something over here. Wow. So if I can zoom in over here for you to read. So clouds floating in the sky, never-ending mystery. What's the crystal you hold? Blah blah blah. Of course, I have not given a scroll, so it's not able to scroll. But I'm pretty sure it's a longer poem over here. So yeah. So this is about a poem on clouds. One more thing I can show you: if you don't give any inputs, then I expect it to take a default input of this one. So I'll do one thing. I'll just select all and I'll cut it so that there is no input. And now if I click here, I still expect some output here, which is basically not on clouds but on magic backpack. So if you notice, it has changed. Once upon a time there was a young boy named Jack. Jack was a kind and hardworking and blah blah. So there's few some text, of course, they have come up with, and I think it's about the magic backpack. Some nice stories it has come up with Palm API. So it looks pretty good, similar to ChatGPT and other AI tools. It works perfectly fine. So I just wanted to show you it's much more easier, in fact, to integrate over here. And they have given various methods. One is the cURL, which I have shown that you can directly use Python, Node.js concepts. They've shown different concepts how you can use or integrate directly in your the APIs in your code over here. So that's all. I hope this video is useful to you. If you have any questions or suggestions, then please put in the comment section below. And if you like this video, then please subscribe to my channel. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye.